All right, everybody. Good evening to everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for the first episode of The Yard. My name is Richard Bronson. I'm the founder and CEO of Commissary Club, and before that, 70 million jobs. Like a lot of the people who I'm sure are listening in right now, I spent a part of my life in prison. Now I'm involved with working to help my brothers and sisters who also did time so that they can build a community of people just like us. And while at the same time, we're helping them to find jobs and housing and classes and doctors and lawyers and on and on and on. Tonight, I'm joined by two friends of mine who also spend time behind bars, and they also work with me. Number one, I have my good friend Seth Sundberg. Seth is the number one thing you need to know about Seth. He's very tall, and Seth also played in the NBA. He played center for the LA Lakers with a very young Kobe Bryant and taught Kobe most of what he knew. So hats off for that, Seth.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. After the NBA, Seth was a successful businessman, but he got in trouble with the IRS, which is never a good idea. And he ended up receiving 5 years behind bars for that, including a long time he spent in solitary confinement. So maybe one day we'll get him to talk a little bit about that. My other teammate who's with us tonight is my dear friend Divine. Hey, Divine.
Peace.
Divine, in case you don't know who he is, and if you haven't, I don't know where you've been, but Divine is himself a successful entrepreneur, and he also happens to be a successful rap musician. In another life, he was also a successful drug dealer until he got popped. And well, I think it's a little too late at this point to worry about that. And he spent 10 years of his life somewhere that was not of his choosing. My story is, and I'm pretty sick of telling it. I was just mentioning this before, but let me just get it out of the way. I'm from New York. I used to work on Wall Street, and I was very successful. I made a lot of money there. I was actually a partner at the infamous Wolf of Wall Street firm that you saw in the movies. And it was as crazy as you saw in the movies. I went on to launch my own financial services firm in Florida, and I grew it into a very big business, but I also broke a bunch of laws along the way. And my excuse was simply I was very greedy, nothing more or less. I lost everything through that, though, and I spent a few years in prison as well. When I got out, I was homeless and destitute, but I had found my calling in life, and that was to work with my brothers and sisters and try to help them have success with coming out of prison. So what is this that we're doing here for the first time? What is the Yard? Let me put it this way. When you're in prison, the one thing you have going for you is you have a lot of time on your hands. And you end up spending a lot of time out of necessity, because there's nothing else to do. You spend a lot of time just hanging out with your friends that you've made there. You know, you spend time in the cafeteria, you know, talking about the meal that you miss, you know, that your mother cooked, or the restaurant or whatever, because the food is not so great in prison, as you may be aware. You spend a lot of time waiting on lines. And forever, for no reason, you're waiting on lines. But once again, it's time you're hanging out with your friends and you just talk. You may be out in the yard, you know, outdoors, getting some fresh air. You may be sitting on a picnic table, or there may be bleachers that you're sitting in with your friends, and you're just hanging out and you're talking. Or maybe you're at the weight pile where you're working out and you're just doing a lot of talking. And you talk about anything, you talk about your family, you talk about women or men, you talk about freedom, a lot of that you talk about. And you also laugh a lot. People don't really think in terms of prison as a place where there's laughing, but there's a lot of characters that you meet in prison. And, believe me, if you have a reason to laugh, that's something you can really cherish. So what we want to do is, we, the three of us, and maybe some of the people who are listening in right now, sort of remember those moments out of, in general, it was terrible. And, we wasted time and, we can go on and on about it. But, when did we have that much time to just hang out and talk and share thoughts and be stupid and give our opinions and pontificate and say whatever we had to say? Tonight, we've got a couple of people that are also very good friends. First, we're joined by my good buddy, Glenn Martin. Hey, Glenn, how are you?
How's it going? Glad to be here.
Glad to have you, brother.
Glenn?
What's up, Devon?
Glenn is a well-known advocate within the criminal justice system. But before all that, he was a well-known jewelry store thief. And
only well known by the police, but
well, and the jewelry stores that you took down to, I would imagine they might recall. You told me stories of how you did it, and it was like a made-for-TV movie, or not? It was a movie. It was that good, but you did a whole lot of that and did very well, until the last one, which never goes as well.
Always the last one.
What's that?
It's always the last one.
Always the last one that, shit.
Why didn't I get out the game? This is the last time I was going to do it. How many times did I do that?
I know.
Trying to get out the game, right? Last one.
That last one is the doozy.
That's the doozy.
After Glenn got out of prison, and incidentally in prison, he, there's a saying in prison, don't you do, what is it? Do the time, don't let the time do you. Glenn did the time his way, including getting, going to school and getting degrees. So when he came out of prison, he had something, that would help him educationally, at least. When he got out, he began working at a nonprofit that works in the reentry space called Fortune Society in New York. He rose up in the organization, became one of the organization's leaders. He left there and he started his own nonprofit that he built into a very large, successful nonprofit organization and did a lot of good work. He left there and now he operates, number one, he's a business advisor for other nonprofits as well as for-profit companies. And he's also a very successful real estate investor. This motherfucker got it going on. He's making money hand over fist. He has something like 19 properties. And he also now has a training program that he offers people, who want to retire rich. And, like a lot of people in prison, who particularly people, a lot of people who are in the drug business or my business, they're like entrepreneurs, who are successful entrepreneurs. In a different world, they would have, been Mark Zuckerberg going to Stanford University or something. Our other Seth is not with us yet, but I can't wait until he shows up, and I'll introduce him then. But you're in for a treat when he comes. I'm going to stop talking very, very soon, I promise. We just have a couple of house rules here going forward and what we want this to be and what we don't want it to be. First of all, guests, people here can say whatever the hell they want to say, and they say it however they want to say it, okay? Except for one thing. I know that I and Divine and Seth and Glenn and people in the future that we're going to have here, we do a lot of interviews. We do podcasts. We're interviewed by the media, whatever. We got our whole rap down. We've told the story a million times. That is exactly what we don't want to happen here. We don't want this to be interviews. with pat answers, but rather the way, just the sort of conversations we used to have. If somebody is full of shit, I'm going to tell them they're full of shit. Okay. And if somebody's telling about things they don't really know about, but they want to show off, they're going to hear it also. And except for me, of course, because if you say anything to me, I'm going to fire you all or something like that. So don't do that. No, I'm along for the ride here too. If anybody in the audience wants to ask a question or say something or tell us to shut up or whatever, please feel free to do so. We already have a bunch of people, go to the chat button and say what you want to say. And if we think your question is something we want to address, we will. And if it's something to talk about afterwards, offline, we'll do that. All right, enough about me. Seth Sundberg, you were telling me before we went on that there's something that's really bugging you or you need to get off your chest or whatever. What's on your mind?
I've just been thinking a lot about kind of the current state of the world and especially the States. And, everybody's calling this lockdown. You know what I mean? Like, we've been in lockdown. Like, this seems like pretty easy time to me. Glenn, is this something that you're like, oh man, this lockdown is ridiculous, or is this kind of easy time, or what do you think, man?
It's funny you asked that because at the beginning of this, I actually wrote an op-ed that got placed in the New York Daily News, telling people the differences between this and being locked down and the similarities between this and being locked down.
Like real lockdown.
But I got to be honest, like I think at times of disruption, people who've lived through disruption operate the best. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Absolutely. I think in many ways right now we're king and queen.
Yep. No, absolutely. I think a lot of people are kind of like, when you go inside, right? Like, if we're chilling on the yard, we've already been processed. You know what I mean? But like as you're going through that processing part, I spent a year in county jail, and which was hell. But like once you get to a full prison and you're out on the yard, you're just like, all right, like, we're out and we're there. You've already kind of mourned the loss of your freedoms and everything at that point, right? But that is a tough thing to go through.
I think human beings are generally pretty damn resilient, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think prison has taught us that. And because the opposite of being resilient is giving up. And I'm not in the business of giving up. I've seen what it looks like when people give up. But the beauty of it is even in my work now, like working with nonprofits to help them, I help them fundraise, I help them do organizational development. But I got to tell you, the thing that they rely on me the most is around crisis management. When they're in the middle of crisis and, they're running around like crazy trying to figure it out, I'm usually the calmest person in the room because I've seen all sorts of crises.
Right. You got
when the FBI is knocking on your door, that's a crisis.
That's crisis management.
It's a real crisis management.
D, do you remember when you were arrested?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What went down then? What happened with you?
I made a delivery, a substantial amount of cocaine, both hard crack.
How much is a substantial amount, man? Like that,
half a key at the time, maybe half a kilo at the time.
Yeah, that's not. You're not gonna do that at one time.
And as I'm driving off for the rental, I make the move. My man actually makes a move. I'm driving around the block waiting for him, and I'm coming around the block, and there's this U-Haul truck coming at me, and I'm going like this in the rental. U-Haul truck cuts right into my lane, smashes me. All these ninjas jump out the back, crack the driver's side window, trying to open the door. It's locked. They crack the driver's side window, grab me out, pull me out. So yeah, that was my episode. That's how it went down, man.
I never understood people who hustle. I mean, as a stick-up kid, I feel like if you get it done in 3-4 minutes, you're chilling for like the next few months.
Right.
How often were you taking down jewelry stores, Glenn?
Every 2 months.
Was that the schedule?
Up and down the I-95 every 2 months.
Wow.
$300,000 to $500,000 a pop. 7 people, 6 people, 5 people, depending on what we needed. But when it was over, it was over. People who hustled, everyone else around me hustled. People thought I hustled, but everyone else around me hustled. And I never understood. You got to worry about police, detectives. You got to worry about the DA. You got to worry about the guy you're buying it from, selling it to. You got to worry about your partner.
Too many variables, right? Too many.
Too many variables.
Yeah.
Yeah, because look at how well it worked out for you, Glenn. You know, when I was, you know, guilty of securities violations. So there was no weapon involved other than, you know,
Stroke of a pen.
my sense of larceny, which was a formidable weapon, I have to admit. But, you know, I had the opportunity. They didn't come and arrest me and haul me off, but rather they came and from the FBI, two people, a man and a woman. They showed, you know, they lifted up their coat and showed me their badge and their gun. At that point, I knew something was up. And, you know, they said to me initially, well, we're going to give you a chance. You know, if you want to talk to us right now, we can make this go very easy. And I go, I'm not talking to you now. What are you kidding? You know, and they offered me, you know, if you help us bring cases and wear a wire, you know, you won't have to go to prison. I'm like, I'm not doing that, you know? So I had the opportunity, you know, I said, what I did was wrong. That's what, I mean, I'll take responsibility for that, but I'm not going to ruin someone else's life to save my ass. I mean, that'll never live down.
You know,
What?
No, go ahead, finish. Sorry.
So I had the opportunity to self-report.
Nobody says sorry in the yard. Like, don't apologize for shit.
Yeah,
That's that interview shit that we were just talking about.
All right.
Go ahead, finish.
So I had the opportunity to self-report when it was my time to go to prison. And I had to fly down to Florida where I was going, a federal prison. And I had my little like bag, you know, I didn't know what I was going to be able to bring in there. I had
Costa Rica.
medicine,
little bag.
You know,
Look,
and
that's a very white way to get locked up.
I agree.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you. I thought it was only me.
I know, that's the point I'm trying to make. I'm believing there's a
house. I didn't make it to the corner, handcuffs on.
Straight up.
6 years later.
All right. So I think it's fair to say at this point that the criminal justice system is a little bit racist. Okay.
Although,
I think we could all buy into that.
There was 15 armed guys with AR-15s out in front of my door to threatening to shoot my dog too. So
crazy.
Know.
I don't know. Maybe they just didn't think I was any kind of threat. I don't know. I hadn't thought about it that way, you know. But in any event, I show up. And it was like I knocked on the door and I said, hello, I'm here for prison.
Unfucking-believable.
And it was the funniest thing. And I had this like surreal moment, like, if I take this one step, I'm now in prison. I'm safe, I'm free. Now I'm in prison. And I could go back and forth, I'm free, I'm in prison. But I said, all right, let's get the clock ticking on my sentence. So I walked in there. And then things changed and it was like, I don't know if you ever saw the movie, The Wizard of Oz. Half of The Wizard of Oz is in black and white, and then it goes into color. And I felt like when I was outside free, the world was colorful. But the minute I walked into this prison, everything all of a sudden became black and white.
That's a true story, man. That's figurative, that's literal. I remember arriving back in Midtown Manhattan, Times Square, and you don't realize how many colors and lights and everything you're deprived of when you're in a prison setting.
Yeah, right.
I remember just like sensory overload. Like, forget about the fact that you're just coming home after all these years, but literally my mind couldn't comprehend all the lights and colors that was going on around me.
Glenn, you from New York, Glenn?
Yeah, I'm from Harlem.
Oh, okay, no doubt, uptown, baby.
Cool.
Uptown.
But Richard, you remind me. So, you know, like cats who do time in the state got some issues with cats who do time in the feds, right?
Yes, I understand that.
But I got a funny recent story. So, you know, I got two businesses and all this PPP money comes out and EIDL money and all this stuff from the federal government. So I'm legit. I could apply for that, right? And so I applied for it. And just before I signed the loan, because they approved it, I pick up the phone and I call this cat named Jeff that you might know, Jeff Grant. And I say, yo, Jeff, I'm about to sign for this federal loan. Didn't you get locked up for this? And he was like, yeah. I was like, tell me a little bit about how I could spend this money without getting locked up. Like, walk me through that. And it was just so funny that, like, I got, first of all, doing the right thing. So I shouldn't even have to think twice about taking money that I have access to just like anybody else. But it's interesting to have a network where instead of me pick up the phone and calling my lawyer, I picked up the phone and called a cat who did time for doing the wrong thing with one of those loans.
Right. Interesting.
You know, go ahead, Dave.
No, I'm saying, Richard, you reported to a camp, correct?
Yes.
Glenn, where did you start your time at?
I went from
what level of security?
I went at downstate, max.
Okay.
Then I went to Wendy, then I went to Attica, then I went to a medium, Wyoming, all in New York.
But Glenn, you have to agree with me. The worst place in the world where I spent a few
Rikers.
The worst weeks of my life was at Rikers, right?
Right.
You won't be smiling on Rikers Island.
Yo,
that is a place that is pregnant with evil.
Yo, when I was at Rikers and I left to go do the rest of my time, I knew, I was like, if the rest of my time is like the year I just did on Rikers, I'm not gonna make it to the finish line. It was crazy.
That was hell.
Oh, who's this?
Somebody's babies in the yard.
Yeah, Rikers was pretty bad.
Rikers was a hellhole, man. Rikers is like, I mean, I've never been to LA County Jail, and I assume that the two of them are sort of in the running for the worst places, but
right.
It was hard. And then I go to upstate prison and people are opening cans of tuna, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get the top of that can and I'm gonna bend that in half, and that's
exactly. And then $1.50.
Throw in the garbage, eat tuna fish. I'm like, oh, there's something different here from what I'm used to.
Is Rikers so fucked up because it's the people that are there just straight violent and just going bananas and getting after each other, or is it because the facility's old, or because all the above?
You know, I think it's because of the culture. Like, it's an island, even though it's next to one of the largest cities in the world. It's an island, and when you get there, there's only one bridge on, one bridge off. Right. It was purchased from a guy who used to capture black men and send them into slavery. Like, literally, the guy Richard Rikers, who owned it, was like a slave catcher.
Wow.
And so the isolation of it, the COs, they have created this culture of like, you on my land. You came across that bridge, now you on my land.
Right.
And that's the way they run it, like a slave
catcher.
It's
a monster. Yeah, it's a monster.
No, we always said that the COs do something like specific to kind of boost the anxiety level a little bit because it's job security for them.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. My older brother became police. He became a federal CO, and now he's a U.S. Marshal.
Wow.
Yeah, Thanksgiving is fucked up.
So that's a good question. Like, I saw these COs, and I mean, I don't want to judge people. Well, fuck that. I'll judge them. COs in general, and again, I was not at this, max high tech kind of environment, but the COs in general were I don't know, stupid, and sort of unmotivated. And it felt like they were doing time every bit as much as I was, except I was going to leave. And they were almost jealous, and I had COs coming to me who knew about my background because I was in Miami and I was, fairly well known. I owned a nightclub and I had a magazine and all this other shit. They were coming to me and they were looking to hook themselves up when I got out. I'm not talking about other inmates. I'm talking about the COs.
Yeah.
And they were talking about, can you hire my son and all this other kind of thing, And I felt like they were doing
6 months early. Shit, I'll hire him.
Really. They were doing time every bit as much as I was,
Worse.
Yeah, it takes like 3 COs just to write somebody up, right? Like, literally, some of them don't even have education to write you a ticket.
Straight up.
What does writing a ticket mean for the benefit of those people, Glenn, who don't know what that means?
It means you might go to jail when you're in jail. Like, if you do something wrong,
the jail inside the jail.
Yeah.
Which is the worst jail? That one, right?
It is. It's like they push you deeper and deeper into Dante's Inferno.
Exactly. Another ring of hell.
It's that insolence report, right? Insolence. I never heard the word insolence until I went to federal prison. I'm like, insolence? What the fuck is that? Insolence?
That's a crime, D. Of course.
I'm like, are you serious?
So
that book you then. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to get my money's worth.
Yeah, man, crazy.
So when we're talking about insolence and going deeper, we have to turn to, once again, our buddy Seth. Seth, who it wasn't bad enough he went away to prison. You know, Seth was going to show them. How long did it take before you ended up in solitary confinement yourself, Seth?
I mean, so I spent a year in county, then I got to prison. It's been about a year. And then I spent 4 months for being hard-headed.
What did you do exactly that landed you in that kind of situation?
Being insolent.
Yeah,
insolent?
for sure. Yeah, it's times 7. So my mom was tax fraud, and I had actually I started at a medium because I was hard-headed in court and thought I knew better than the judge, and there was a lot of cool stuff that I did that was
How did that work out?
Pretty smart now that I look back, and I would definitely do the same thing again. No. So they sent me to a medium for taxes, which typically doesn't happen. I get it. And so I spent 2 weeks when I first got to the medium in the shoe, and then they let me out to the yard. I was there for about 10 months, got my security points dropped, went to a camp, was at the camp for a while, and then I got the bright idea. The IRS had sent me a letter saying that, you owe, $2.5 million to us, and and I was like, all right. So I wrote him a special letter back, and it never got to him. Probably, thank God, because the prison intercepted it and said I was insolent, right? But and so they threw me in the shoe just under investigation for 4 months. But it was pretty shitty. There's guys that do 17 years, whatever in the shoe, and that's how they do their whole time. So I don't.
How old were you?
Old enough to know better.
I was about to say, were you like so young you didn't realize that threatening the IRS while you're sitting in the feds was not a good idea?
No.
Yeah, you would think, Glenn, that pretty much anybody would recognize that was a dangerous path to go down, right?
One might think.
Yeah.
So let me ask you all a question. When you first got to prison, your first time, what was the thing that hit you most? What was the thing that smacked? I mean, maybe it was someone who smacked you in the head, but if it wasn't something literally a smack in the head, I'll tell you what hit me. I was being led into this sort of dormitory, big room where they had hundreds of double-decker cots. And you had the Latin guys in one corner, like yelling at each other, playing dominoes, like so loud. I couldn't imagine why do they need to speak that loud. But the smell hit me. And I said to somebody, I go, what the fuck is that smell? It's disgusting. And they said to me, what smell? I go, and I pointed out, and they go, that's mackerel. I go, mackerel? What the hell does that mean? Mackerel. And I later discovered that canned mackerel, is something that's high in protein, and guys in prison, who are working out, are looking for a lot of protein, and that it's used as a tool of barter. You get a guy who's going to do your laundry, that's 2 mac, or, whatever, and it's mackerel, and mackerel stinks. Like I had never smelled anything before. And I go, there's no fucking way I'm going to be able to live with this smell. I'd like to leave now, please. But, I don't like these accommodations. What hit you, Glenn, the first thing?
Give me a different room. I'm going to make you sound shallow as fuck because
thank you.
What hit me was bumping into all these cats that I hadn't seen for years. People who had disappeared from my community.
Oh, wow.
Include where they went, and then I show up at Rikers, and it's like this cat I went to junior high school with, this cat I went to high school with, this cat I went to public school with. It just blew me away how many young men of color in particular were locked up at Rikers, either going through for the first time or the second time or the third time. It was a strange, I hate to put it this way, but it was like a family reunion at Rikers.
What hit you, D?
I say just I had never really No, I was born in Rhode Island, transplanted to New York City, Brooklyn, but I had never really been outside the state, like far away. And when I went through the federal system, they took you on that flight. I went up to Maine. From there, went on a flight to Oklahoma. That was a processing center at the time. I went in 1992, 19 years old, and that was a processing center at the time in Oklahoma. So when I got to Oklahoma, they put us in these catacombs of these cells, like in a basement. And I was like, yo, this shit is crazy right here. It was dark. It was like a dungeon. I'm like, yo, this is nuts. But what was crazy about it, when I walk into the cell that they put me in, on the bed, there's a Holy Quran. I had just started studying Islam, and the Holy Quran was like on the bed. So I just took that as a positive sign that stay positive, stay strong, keep the faith, and moving forward, everything became that much easier through spirituality, man. But yeah, that was the first thing that hit me, just being so far away from home. No family can come see me. I had a son that was 3 years old. A woman I thought I was gonna be marrying, and just everything just fell apart for me. And that gave me the surreal moment that, things is different right now.
Huh. Hey, something, D, on a completely different subject, but I got to bring it up. We all in prison, they give you something you got to wear, so you walk around with a t-shirt or khaki pants and khaki shirt, maybe even you go to the weight pile to work out, you got to wear these boots. So everybody looks pretty much the same. I guess that's the point. And yet certain people had the ability to kind of rock their own style, right?
Straight up.
And I was amazed. I mean, the guys in prison, some of the guys really took pride, that their, clothes were pressed. And I go,
yeah,
why
the
the hell do you
VWAP.
give a right?
Go out to the
Because
VWAP.
I'm looking at you right now, and you are a stylish guy. And I'm looking at the background, that kind of cranberry background,
okay,
and your New York Yankee cap, go Yanks. And it's totally coordinated. You're a stylish guy. How did your style manifest itself in prison?
Oh man, early on when we was going in there, we was like, I went in, like I said, 92. I went in there early. I don't know what time y'all went in or y'all went in, but I went in early when it was a lot of white collar criminals in there before, the crack cocaine, when they started flooding the prisons all across the nation with low level drug dealers. So I was considered a substantial drug dealer at the time for my age and the amount of cocaine I was bringing from New York to Rhode Island and doing my thing. Yeah. I made it, Ma. I made it. So they used to have the Air Force Ones, which is classic New York shit, uptowns. They had the white joints, black joints, and all that. So we flipped those out. We sometimes we walking with our we used to have the gray sweats. We throw a leg up, over the calf, that type of style. We had the sunglasses. We rock the sunglasses. Different things we used to flip, man. Summertime, we make the sweatpants and the shorts. We did crazy things. You had the tailors and all. 2 Mackles, you get the guy to tailor you up real quick. You go on the VWAP, which means a visit. You go on the VWAP, we call the dance floor. We out there, we got our joints pressed up. I was rocking with the guards and all that, so I used to put a 7. They have a 7, put in the back of my shirt. So when I came through, they knew what it was. Guard on deck. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Whoa.
What about you, Glenn?
That I'm the only West Coast guy here, huh? Rich is from New York. You guys are all. Is this the setup? Hold on.
Yeah. We got beef.
You got West Coast right here.
Yo, guard, get me.
You got plenty of West Coast backup, homie. Don't forget.
All right. Now I feel better.
Yeah. So what did you do to look stylish, Seth? Seth, by the way, is 7'1". His nickname in prison was 7, right, Seth?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't know if I told you this. They had to take 2 pants and they extended it like the bottom of my pants like this. So I had like an extra seam around it. And I appreciate it.
That's hilarious.
It was definitely better than what county jail was, but
2 seam. That's your new name.
2 seam, yeah, exactly. Instead of 2 chains. Yeah.
2 seam. Oh man.
I hope that doesn't stick.
Right. Hey, 2 seam. Get over here.
I hope that doesn't stick. Oh shit. They also made when I got to the camp, they made a bed. You know how the bunks are, right? So the bunks are whatever, 6 feet long. And so they made a an extended pad to put on top of the bunk, but the bunk was here and the pad would go like
hang over,
out,
yeah,
like
hang over,
2
right?
feet
Yeah.
over. So it worked for like 3 days, and then that thing was like this. And I was like, all right, I appreciate the lookout for sure.
Kind gesture.
Glenn, what did you have hanging on the wall? Were you in a prison cell, Glenn? I guess you were, right?
Yeah, I was in the prison cell for most of the time until like the last year or two.
What do you have hanging on the wall?
You know, I got to tell you, like I did my time. I was angry most of the time, man. I was angry. So I didn't have like chicks hanging on the wall. I didn't have women's pictures hanging on the wall, stuff like that. Like most people did. I had my work, my school work. Like I was like, I'm gonna make sure I make the best use of this time. And so I was not only in college, I was damn near running the whole college program.
Wow.
I spent a lot of time helping other cats get their GED, helping people to get into the college program. So, you know, honestly, I had literally Russian literature pinned up to my wall. I was taking Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, you name it. You know, shit I wasn't exposed to in my community. I mean, it's kind of crazy that I ended up in prison, you know, and that's where the first time somebody said to me, you should go to college. But it just was, and I spent my time going to college, whether I was in the class or not.
So you took advantage of the Pell Grants and all that and early on in the feds?
It wasn't no Pell Grants. Like
Okay.
I came right after the Pell Grants.
Okay, yeah, I was during the Pell Grants, all right.
Yeah, I came right after the Pell Grants, which the program was a lot smaller. It was like 35 people in it, in a facility with 1,800 people.
Right.
Wow. What you earn? What degrees did you earn?
I earned a liberal arts degree, social science. And so most people would be like, damn, why social science? But I got to tell you, like, it was the best gift I ever had because, I mean, you learn religion, philosophy, sociology, psychology, you name it. What you learn is people. And that served me well. I mean, I find myself in rooms with all kinds of people. And people ask me how I raise money so well. I mean, I've raised like $100 million in the last 20 years. And I would argue that most of it is because I spent a lot of time studying people. I mean, I could have got like a computer degree or business degree. Those things are important, but knowing how to navigate people is much more important.
And how long have you been out?
20 years.
Oh, it's 20. Okay, 20. Okay, good.
How long you been out, D?
8. Last time I was incarcerated, about 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
I've been out for about 15.
Seth?
6.
6.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 15 when I got out.
15, okay. Sounds good. You look about 25. I'll give you that. The preservation.
So that really, so listening to you, Glenn, it really kind of raises an interesting point that, you know, I hesitate to bring up, but it was almost as if the way you're describing your experience in prison, that on its merits, you actually probably got more out of it, you know, than it cost you in a way. Is that fair to say?
Hell no, I'm not going to admit to that.
Okay. All right, good.
I like your position.
Yeah, wait, hold on. Here's what I
go to college. Now you going to prison. No, it's
Come on,
fine.
Joe College.
I think it's just a fucked up statement about society that a cat like me had to end up in prison before I got exposed to the kind of shit I should have got exposed
Agreed.
to in my
Agreed.
Amen. 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 So what is the thing that would surprise most people who've never been down about the whole experience?
I'm gonna tell you my perspective. I'm gonna tell a quick story. I'm gonna be quick. Watch. So I'm in this place called Auburn.
We'll see about that.
I'm in this place called Auburn in New York. Fucked up prison. If you think of like the worst prison you could ever find, Auburn, New York. You know, looks gray, looks like a fucking castle, dark cloud over it, lightning bolt, all that shit. And I end up in there for the weekend because they're moving us around from facility to facility. And they put me in a cell with this guy named Arthur. And they opened all the windows on the block. So we don't have any of our stuff, any of our clothes, all that sort of shit. You just in a cell, 2 people getting fed 3 times a day, and that's it. And I start getting sick on day 2. I'm coughing, I'm hacking up. Thank God there was no COVID. I can't even imagine what that's like right now. And after a while, Arthur, who was actually getting Ritalin through the cell, like getting mental health medication through the cell, turns to me and he's like, yo, do you want me to make you a cup of tea? And I'm like, oh, damn. Like, I'm about to yell for the CO to get me the fuck up out of here. He's going to make me a cup of tea.
Yeah.
What is he talking about? And he grabs a plastic bottle and half of y'all gonna know where this story is going. And he takes the plastic bottle and he ties a string to it and he attaches it to the light fixture. And he takes the toilet tissue and rolls it up really tight, pulls the mattress off the bunk, use a lead pencil in the outlet to light the tissue on fire. And the bottle just begins to hover over the fire like this. And it begins to melt. And it doesn't burst, but the water in the bottle starts to boil. And he rips a tea bag out of his collar and puts it in the bottle. And he handed me a cup of tea.
Wow.
And
Innovation at its finest.
well, that's the story I want. If there's anybody listening to us now that's never been in the yard, that's what I want people to walk away with. Like, we lock up some of America's best and brightest, and there's so much talent, and people figure it out. Like, I'm sure we could tell 30 stories like the one I just told. I think that's what I'd like to see people walk away from the conversation with.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's great.
It was not true.
And this is a guy who's looking after you and, you know, just to do the right thing, and you'll look after the next guy. And there's so much of that you hear about, you know, oh, the guy came over and he wants me to be his bitch and blah, blah, you know,
Right.
that stuff goes on, certainly. But what you don't get is, you know, it's like you take people and you put them and you make them animals and and treat them like animals in a cage, and you expect, you're surprised that they become animals, but somehow humanity just sort of, you know, wins the day. And, you know, I remember when I first walked into prison too.
And it's worth saying that, you know, we ain't got no women right now talking, but women also, you know, they go through hell in prison. First of all, prison wasn't even built for them. There's not even programs for them.
Right.
They get raped, they get sexually assaulted. All that shit happens in prison.
Oh, indeed.
I can't wait till when you do an In the Yard episode and you got some women here helping people understand what their experience is like.
Well, speaking of women, let me just interject something. I'm reading the comments in the chat area here, of which there are many, many, and I can't wait to go through them. But there's a woman named Val who is with us. And Adrian, is it possible to get Val to be able to talk? Unmute her. But Val just got out of the joint 90 days ago, and she joins us here today. So hey, Val, if you can hear me, you know, welcome home. And, you know, we're so happy to have you. You mentioned here you're on the West Coast. That's where we are. At least, you know, me and my team are. And we'd love to be able to, you know, help you in any way that we can. And just to know that there's a community here and a family. And welcome home, Val. It's great to have you.
Val.
Welcome home, for sure.
Welcome home.
Welcome home is right.
So Val, what are we missing in this conversation? I'm curious.
Val, we can't hear you.
Val, you're unmuted, but maybe turn the volume up or something so we can hear you.
Who's Val? Val?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Now we can, a little bit.
Valerie Bolden, I see her.
Oh, there you are. Hey, Val.
Hey.
Your volume is way low. We can barely hear you. If you can get closer to the mic or something.
I have it.
There we go.
Okay. So what was the question?
Well, first of all, welcome home.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're really the volume is not good, Val. We can barely hear you.
I'm sorry. Next time I'll log on with my computer.
All right, don't worry about it. It's great to have you, and thank you for joining us. And maybe we'll have, like Glenn suggested, maybe we'll have you on. You know, and for everybody here, you know, just so you understand, and this is not to be a plug. Well, it is to be a plug. You know, we launched this website called Commissary Club, commissary.club. And the main reason we did it is because we think that it's about time, it's over time that folks with a record should have a community, and that we should have our own place, not Facebook where, you know, little kids and grandmothers go, but our own place, our own social network that we can connect, because there's very little connection. There's very little opportunity for people to help each other, to inspire each other, to be role models. And we think that that's important. We're 70 million of us, you know, there's 70 million people with records. We could elect any fucking president we wanted. And maybe we don't have individually a lot of money, but together we do have a lot of money. And yet nobody really pays attention to us and gives a shit. I don't think that's right. We don't think that's right. And we think if we come together, you know, that at least together, we could have a voice. So please go to Commissary Club, Val, and everybody else, and sign, you know, create an account. It doesn't cost anything. There's all kinds of resources to help you with jobs and housing and all kinds of stuff, but mostly just to connect to one another, you know, and that's the goal, you know, so please take it from me. It's a personal invitation. It would mean a lot to me. We all need to look out for each other. We need to look out for Val right now. So that's my speech.
Thank you, Richard. But what I want to chime in on something you said earlier, Richard, and something that Glenn was speaking to is the humanness that exists inside prison that is not really exposed to the public, right? The public thinks that it's all rape, it's all violent, it's all these type of negative things and stereotypes, but they don't understand the humanist side. And I say that in a way that when I was traveling through prison, like getting transferred to wherever I was going, when I would get to certain spots, I go to my bunk and it'd be like a care package there. You know, sometimes care packages have things attached to them, but for the most part, they don't. And it's just people really pitching in and adding something to this care package, whether it's lotion, deodorant, toothpaste, a toothbrush, you know, this different things. Yeah, exactly. Just to get you going and get you started, because they know that when you transfer, your stuff is in transit. You don't have everything you need to get busy, and the money takes time to come, and you know, you just out there just chilling in whatever you got. So, you know, it's definitely the humanist side, man, to prison and incarceration and the camaraderie amongst inmates when you connect with them, because everybody connects with certain people. You're not gonna get along with everybody or vibe with everybody. When you vibe with certain people, I made lifetime friends and companions and brothers in prison that I still speak to this day, that, you know, are doing different things all across the globe, and it's great to reconnect with them and just have opportunities, you know, whenever they present themselves through different individuals I met in prison. So, you know, I think the camaraderie and the humanness, man, is something we don't really hear about a lot.
Yeah. You know what else we don't hear about a lot? Is the rumor mill in prison.
Oh man.
I forgot how bad it was until I was thinking about this the other day. Is like we call it inmate.com. I don't know what you guys call it in the state, but in the feds it was inmate.com. And it was like rampant.
Yo, I'm getting that web address.
You heard that on inmate.com? Oh, okay, cool. What'd you hear? We're all getting out tomorrow? Oh, cool. Right. No, I got you.
Oh, the crack law changed? We getting time off?
Crack law changed.
Yeah, now it's good to happen. It never happened on my watch. It never would happen on my bid.
Do you know, when I was in prison, I was in Florida, and one day, all of a sudden, the guards started saying, the word got out, there were announcements, grab your pillow, we're leaving. And I go, what the fuck does that mean? Grab your pillow, we're leaving. What a weird thing is that? And they were saying, we're getting out of here. And then it came out that there was a hurricane coming. This is in Southern Florida. So we got to bug out of here. And they go, grab your pillow. And everyone's going, what? Fuck my pillow. What about the rest of my stuff? No, don't worry about that. We're going to take it all. And everyone's going, yeah, I don't know about that. It's such a good idea, because everybody's got some kind of contraband they're looking to hide. But everybody grabbed their pillow. They put us on this yellow school bus, and we're all going, what the hell is going on? They don't tell you, of course, but they shackled us. You know, we were handcuffed, and then with the thing around our waist and leg.
No, I'm good. I got it. Thank you.
And leg, you know, whatever the hell it's called.
Shackles?
And they put us in this old yellow school bus, and we start driving. We have no idea where we're going. And everyone's going, well, how do I tell my family? And my wife's coming tomorrow, you know, all this kind of shit like that. They don't tell you anything. And of course, the rumors are spreading of what's going on, you know, and we show up at a prison in Alabama, like driving for like 14 hours, but the prison is apparently full and nobody really checked. So we can't go there. Like someone went and go, hi, we're here. Sorry, we don't have any rooms available.
No
So then they took us, this is all, we're on the fucking yellow school bus to Yazoo City, Mississippi, to a federal prison, which is a max. And we weren't used to a max kind of environment. And everybody, all these accountants, they're all like freaking out. You know, that's not what I didn't accept that plea to go to a max, you know. I want my lawyer. And they're going, shut the fuck up. You're not getting your lawyer. And we ended up in this max facility, and all these like, you know, hardened inmates are like looking at us like, you know, we're appetizers at a Chinese restaurant or something. And that was really bad. And then we were in, you know, the, you know, the typical cell with the stainless steel sink toilet ensemble, you know, on the floor sleeping. That was horrific. But you're right, the rumors fly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something a lot of people don't talk about though, is like, you know, you do years in prison and you might think it doesn't affect you, but it affects everybody.
Agreed.
And, you know, it took me years to realize how much prison affected me, because I'm pretty effective at a lot of things, but I didn't realize what the impact was of being locked in those cages for 6 years until many years later. And I know people don't like to talk about it, but if we're going to have real talk, like,
yeah, well, how did it affect you, Glenn? You bring it up.
I mean, honestly, I spend a lot of time in therapy now. I spend every week I'm in therapy, every Thursday. I don't miss therapy. I don't miss it for anything, because I mean, I think the impact is I came out, and because I didn't deal with what got me in there in the first place, because there's no space in prison to have that kind of meaningful conversation, except maybe in the yard. I found that I came out and just started going 100 miles an hour. Like, I'm not going to deal with the shit that got me in there. I'm not going to deal with what those 6 years were like. I'm not going to deal with the damage to my family, all that other sort of stuff. I'm just going to hit the road running and keep going 100 miles an hour. And what I noticed is that people around me were just cheering me on. Everybody's like, look, that dude, he was locked up, but look at everything he's doing now. He's killing it. And I just fed off of that. And that just kept me, you know, focused, but not focused on the things I needed to be focused on. And you pay a price for that. That shit catches up to you. And I would argue that it caught up to me. Like, I made a bunch of bad decisions and paid a serious price for it at one point. And I realized that it all tied back to not just the prison experience, but the fact that even in prison, there's no healthy space to have a discussion about the kind of stuff that got you there in the first place.
Why is that? Is it because that's seen as being a sign of weakness?
You know, it is a place where it's really interesting, because I've had some of the most intimate conversations with other human beings in prison. So I developed relationships where people told me about what it was like to lose their mother while they were in prison, what it was like to not be able to see their children. So I don't want to use a paintbrush and paint it as if there's no room for emotional conversations there. But if it becomes part of the consciousness of the facility, like if people think that that's who you are, you do become vulnerable. It's not rewarded, that's for sure.
Hey, Richard, this is
Lonnie.
Hey, can I ask Glenn a question? I'm sorry,
Sure. This is our good friend Lonnie.
Permission in the yard. We don't ask permission. We just ask.
Go, man.
We just jump in, man.
See, the problem is I have not been in the yard, so that's why I asked permission.
Ain't a problem, my friend.
We're in the yard now. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm in the commissary. I love it. Hey, my question is this. Richard knows what I do, and my boy Cam is on from Center for Employment Opportunities. We run a program to find employment and get folks employment for the previous incarcerated. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, because you said something so fucking important. Therapy. How do I get folks to go to therapy?
You don't call it therapy?
Don't call it therapy.
Nah, I got it. So look, I mean, I used to work at the Fortune Society for years as the vice president. And we realized that we were losing a lot of clients because we weren't addressing mental health issues. And particularly for men of color, there's a stigma. For poor people, there's a stigma. There's also the fact that if you give poor people insurance, that doesn't mean they're going to see a doctor, right? Like if you've been taught that that's not for you, you don't take advantage of it. And so what we found was that we had to take our mental health unit, call it something different. We called it the Better Living Center, and we embedded it inside of all the other services so that people could take advantage of it without the stigma associated with it. So we had to do everything we could do to sort of make it a safe space for people to want to be involved. But you know what? The first thing we did, anyone who knows me knows that I'm known for saying people closest to the problem are closest to the solution. And so the answer to your question is to talk to your clients. Like, what would get you interested in taking advantage of trying to deal with some of the stuff that might be getting in your way? I believe in getting interested in the person on the other side of the table. If you want to motivate people to do something, talk to them, ask them what motivates them, what would get them to the table. So I think that's where you should spend your time. That's probably not a surprise for you. But it took me 17 years, bro. And it took me ending up at the bottom of a dark fucking well to figure it out. And, you know, if you want to help your clients out, like, I wish somebody would have asked that question you just asked when I came out many, many years ago.
So that Lonnie, thanks. Lonnie is a friend of ours, and he helps run a great organization called CEO, and he's one of the good guys for sure, that we've known for years. So Lonnie, well, not Lonnie, I guess Glenn, you know, that really kind of raises the point. People come out of prison, you've discovered somehow or another a path that includes therapy, and it's obviously been enormously impactful for you. How do we, people, and we're all people who care and maybe have the means to make something happen, what could we provide? You know, and I'm specifically looking at what we're doing on Commissary Club. We want to provide resources. What sort of resources would work, do you think? And Lonnie, maybe you could add what doesn't work because you've tried. You know, how can we actually affect some positive change? What can be done?
So I'm gonna speak to advocacy first. People know that's, you know, that's my thing, advocacy. So I think that as a community, we need to advocate to the professional associations of psychiatrists and social workers and others to recognize that this is the deep end of the pool and this is where they should be doing the work, because they actually shy away from people done time in the criminal justice system. I don't want to speak with blanket statements, but the fact of the matter is that if you're a professional psychiatrist, you're barely taking insurance, much less Medicaid, and you're serving people like me who could afford to pay cash every week to get therapy, and eliminating the population that needs it the most. So I think that community needs to decide that they want to give back. And that's only going to happen if we, you know, partially shame them into coming to the table or incentivize them to come to the table. That's number one. And then number two, I also want to be clear that, you know, therapy comes in all different shapes, forms, sizes. Like there's, you know, traditional therapy that you think about, someone who has a bunch of letters after their name that you meet with every week, sitting on a couch, blah, blah, blah. But there's mindfulness, there's yoga, there's all these other different things that people can do that's therapeutic. There's you know, working with animals, all sorts of things. So I think we got to be creative, because unfortunately right now, the mental health treatment community is not showing up the way they need to. And I do think we need to do that advocacy work. But at the same time, there's lower hanging fruit, I think, that we can do as providers to help people.
Amen. Amen.
Absolutely.
One of the things, I'm just going to say this, that and listening to you right now, Glenn, and everybody, Divine, everybody, listening to everybody, and you, Richard and Seth, but one of the things that is missing out of my office is having someone who has gone through what you've gone through.
Yeah.
I don't have any program staff that is formerly incarcerated, and that includes me. Okay.
Are you serious?
No, I don't. I'm just being real upfront about that. I just don't. I don't. And I'm searching for that. I'm searching for that.
Chime in here,
I have my
guys.
site supervisor team who does have, you know, who are formerly incarcerated, but and they're working alongside with the participants. But as far as my program staff, I don't have anyone who can really mentor, who can sit there and say,
9 o'clock. You sound like the president of Wells Fargo, bro. Like there's got to be formerly incarcerated people out there that can do the kind of work you're looking for them.
Absolutely, agreed.
Oh yeah.
I'm teasing a bit. If we could be helpful, you should let us know. and you're gonna make me hit up Sam Schaefer and be like, yo, can you make this happen? Sam
Well,
and
we are. I'm glad you see. You ain't gonna get me in trouble, Glenn. God damn it!
All right, so let me ask you a question.
I'm trying to be transparent up in here. You like, I'm gonna talk to Sam Schaefer like, oh,
I'm fucking with you. What's said in the yard stays in the yard. What says in the yard stays in the yard.
Hey, word up, straight up, word up, word.
So let me ask you all a question. This really sort of begs the point. You know, when you're talking about oppressed minorities, and I think people with records are an oppressed minority, they're considered second-class citizens, if that much. They're deprived of opportunities economically, socially, politically, on and on. Are we doing enough? We, the enlightened people who have done time and care enough to continue talking about it, rather than just sort of looking to sweep it under the rug. Are we doing enough to help our brothers and sisters? Is there a connection gap that exists within this space? Other communities, other populations look after each other and they hook each other up. They help them get into school. They help them get jobs. Whereas with our population, you come out of prison, most people come out of prison, they're on supervised release. They're on parole or probation. That means one of the terms is you may not connect with somebody with a record. They specifically prohibit us from, interacting with people with records. And someone comes out of prison, they have no money, they have no car, they have no clothes, they have no home, they have no job, and yet they better get all of that shit together right away. And oh, by the way, you can't talk to anybody who has a record to help you through it. So what do we do? What can we do? What should we be? Do we have an obligation to one another?
so
I can speak to that a little bit because I'm living it right now. In 2002, I was convicted of a marijuana charge and given a life sentence. I've been in the BOP until June of this year when I was transferred to home confinement. I am still a federal prisoner. That's my GPS tracker. But I'm working with 2 organizations as a mentor for other people getting right out of prison because I can talk about prison. We can, as we can hear on the yard, I can get on the phone and talk to people that are fresh out of prison, and we can interact directly with a prisoner and know what they need, what help they need, what moral support they need, and things of that nature. So it takes us to do it. And there's a bunch of organizations. I'm doing it through an organization called the Last Prisoner Project and the Human Solution.
Okay, excuse me, can I interrupt you? Brother, can I interrupt you? I know who you are, and you're an amazing guy with an amazing story. And I don't think anybody here knows it other than a couple of people. So would you mind terribly introducing yourself and taking 1 minute to tell your very brief story of how you come to being here right now? Because you just said you are a prisoner. You're currently going through this, and yet you're also on the outside. This is an amazing story that you all need to hear. Please, what's your name?
My name is Craig Cecil, and I'm from the Chicago area. How I got my charge is I owned a truck repair business near Chicago. I was repairing trucks, and I was especially repairing trucks for a company where I knew the drivers were using them to haul marijuana. After the events of September 11th, if you remember, they were determined that drug dealers and anybody connected to it were supporting terrorism. I was arrested for conspiring to distribute marijuana by fixing the trucks for this Florida company and given a life sentence. So I've been bounced around the system. Unlike you, when I first got designated to USP Atlanta in 2002. So when I got in the shoe and I was waiting for a bunk, when the captain comes in to, give you that lecture to say, this is my joint, you're going to do it my way. As a lifer, you got to do it just a little bit opposite. You got to answer him, fuck you. I'm a lifer and I'm going to do it my way. And all you're gonna have to do is take my good
What you
time.
gonna do? Yeah.
What good time?
What are you gonna give me
I
life?
did my time a little differently.
It's my fucking good time.
Yo, Craig. So I talked to I have some good buddies that you know, had L's and gave them back and got out and did all that stuff too. And congrats on being back, man. That's great stuff. Everybody that I know that's close to me was always like, and I did 5, you know, and 5 is nothing compared to having an L on you, right? So, but they always say like the first 2 years, seems like the first 2 years are like, shit, I didn't get out of bed for 2 years. You know what I mean? Was that like the same with you? And they were just like, you know, you go through that. I mean, that's like, we talked initially about lockdown, right? Like, you know, messing with Glenn going like, this is easy time, right? You know, this lockdown out in the world now is easy time, but you know, like that's gotta be another deal, right? Did you go through that?
Oh, sure, because the life sentence, on one hand, I was determined that the life sentence was so ridiculous as a first-time offender on a marijuana charge.
Yeah.
I was determined that, you know, any court of appeals is going to throw that out. Well, after the court of appeals said they were done with me and your sentence is fine, you know, things took on a different look. At that point, I was at a brand new joint, USP Big Sandy. And Big Sandy was ugly. It had over 800 DC inmates there because they had closed Lorton.
Those DC dudes, man. No, don't disrespect anybody.
No, I'm just saying that they kind of clicked up in, you know, where I wasn't part of the group, you know. But most of them were from Lorton because they had closed Lorton.
So Glenn, what's your story? What's going to be happening with you?
Great.
What you mean? What do you mean?
You said Glenn. You mean Craig?
Oh, sorry, Craig. Excuse me. No, sorry, Glenn.
Glenn, you're off the hook. You're safe.
Yeah, I don't care what you're gonna do. You're gonna do your thing, Glenn. I know. No, Craig, what's your story? What does the near future look like for you?
Where I'm at right now is I'm designated to home confinement. I have to stay home except when I get a pass to go to the stores or to go to work or whatever. How it stands right now is they can call me back to a joint at any time when the COVID goes away. Because I'm one of the releasees as part of the CARES Act. My approval came directly from William Barr, the Attorney General, because they had certified that I'm no threat to society and I'm vulnerable to COVID. I'm over 60 and diabetic.
Wow.
So they could send me back to the joint tomorrow. At this point, what I'm trying to do is get employment, get a life where I can prove I'm better off left on the outside.
Right.
And didn't they just pass it passed the House or whatever, the federal law to make marijuana legal federally, right?
Decriminalizing marijuana at the federal level.
Yeah, that MORE Act has a provision in it where if you only have a marijuana charge, it's expunged. But from the looks of it, they're not even, it's not going to pass this year. It's not going to make it through the Senate.
Yeah.
And so far, there's really no sponsors for next year because they haven't figured out a way yet to make it so it can get through the Senate. I have ideas, obviously.
Is it retroactive? Is it retroactive?
Right.
It would make it so anybody with a federal marijuana conviction, it would be expunged, which would include mine.
Yeah.
It includes anybody in the system.
So you're
granted, a lot of people have a marijuana charge and maybe also a gun charge and some other dope charge or money laundering or something to go with it. So that's a different animal. Mine is only conspiracy for marijuana. So I walk today, you know, the law's passed and I run it through my court.
That's right.
Craig, real quick. So you're saying that, so if everybody fully understands, you're still under the life sentence, correct?
Yes.
And you're only out because of the COVID situation.
Correct.
Wow.
Really?
And how long have you been incarcerated before you got the COVID relief?
Since the beginning of 2002, right after the events of September 11th.
Wow.
Put it this way, I get half of my emails are still from the joint.
And you've been out how long under the COVID
Terre
relief?
Haute, and they've got all the executions there now.
And how long have you been out under the COVID relief?
Since June.
Wow.
So that's like you were down for almost 18 years.
Over
and now
18
you're
years.
out. Okay. Do you think you're going back? I mean, what's your feeling in your gut?
You really don't know. be whatever the new administration puts together. The problem that I foresee is the Bureau of Prisons is running out of prisoners. They're down to 123,000 prisoners. In 2017, there was 219,000. If you notice, they haven't closed any joints and they haven't laid off any guards.
Yeah.
They need inmates.
Yeah.
The joints are empty. They've all got all kinds of closed down blocks in them.
Yo, Craig, I gotta be honest. Like I don't. Yo, you're in a good fucking mood for somebody that got an L.
Yo, Glenn, I'm like, yo, what the fuck? I'm like, yo,
I did my whole bit that way.
process the whole shit that was going on with him for a minute. Because
That's what I was thinking, Glenn.
when he first spoke, I'm like, what does he mean he's still incarcerated? What the fuck's he talking about? Then Richard pried him to give us information.
Yo,
Man, I had to really like process that.
God bless
You don't gain nothing out of being man. I just left USP Terre Haute. I was the softball commissioner. I was the lead man in Unicorn. I did a lot of writing in the law library.
Unicorn.
That's how I do my time.
So a couple things, Richard, real quick. Couple things. One, I just read an article about a guy who got out the federal prison who has done more time than anyone else up until now. 41 years for a marijuana charge. He's 71. They just finally let him go. Just fucking insane. I can't even believe it.
Insanity.
Second of all, Craig, thanks for sharing your story and for having such a great, personality to go with it. Like, it's really good to get to know you. Welcome home. I hope you stay home. That's
Great.
Absolutely. And then I noticed Seth joined us, Richard. So I wanted to.
Seth here?
Hold on.
Seth Ferrante on deck, my dude.
But I did also tell Richard that I got to do the early go back. I got to go back.
Yeah,
I got to.
Glenn, thank you so much for joining us.
Glenn, salute, King.
Yeah, man.
Cool. I'm glad to be in the inaugural The Yard.
Yo,
right.
Glenn, let's connect offline too later. You know what I mean?
Let's do it, bro.
All right, my king.
Glenn.
Peace.
Hey, so we got another friend of ours here. Seth, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you see him, Richard?
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the famous Seth Ferrante, who is got an interesting story too. If we're not interesting, we got nothing going on here. So we'll hang our hat on that. Seth was incarcerated. Actually, he received a prison sentence for, I think, 21 years.
25.
He was involved in the drug trade, like many, many people. The war on drugs, how's that been going? United States, but I think Seth's drug of trade was lysergic acid diethylamide, if I'm not mistaken, LSD. And he got popped with a bunch of other people, and they copped pleas, but Seth said, "Fuck that! I'm going to fight this thing." Which, I'd be interested in hearing in retrospect, if you think that was, the right path for you to take, because rarely do these things work out when you take things to trial. But Seth got a 21-year prison sentence. But when Seth got out, that's when, amazing things started happening in his life. He's written a vastly prolific published author and filmmaker. And Seth, as much as I dug you up until this moment, when I dug a little deeper, I discovered that you too are a Grateful Dead fan, and like me, traveled the country following the Dead. Is that true?
Yeah, like the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah.
I started. I saw the first show in 1969.
Oh yeah, that's a little before me. Me was
a little before you, but nonetheless.
We got some deadheads in the yard. We got deadheads in the yard.
We got deadheads in the yard. So anyway, Seth, thank you so much for joining us. Where are you right now, Seth?
I live in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay. And how long have you been out?
I got out January 2015, so going on 6 years in January.
So I mean, you have done so much since that time. And I'm sure a lot of people who get out and can't really find their way. And it seems like, you figured sort of things out for you in your life. How did that happen?
Well, I actually, I started writing when I was in. I was doing a column for Vice, like way back in the early 2000s when Vice was just like this, like a kind of low rent GQ fashion punk rock magazine. And I started doing that. I started doing my books. I started my website, guerrillaconvict.com. I think I just, I had so much time. I was just like, what can I do to make a future for myself? And when you're in there, I mean, there's not a lot of options, man, because everything's restricted. You don't have a lot of resources. Anything you can't do, even though I was in there like before online stuff, but you can't do stuff online. So I started reading, and plus I grew up in the suburbs, man. So like being thrown into federal prison with a 25-year sentence when I was 22 as a first-time nonviolent offender, it was just like, it was like culture shock, and I started out like in the gladiator schools, in the, the medium highs. And when I first got in, I just started, I was reading like prison books, like prison by prison authors. I was reading like Jack Henry Abbott, Inside the Belly of the Beast, Mamiya Abdul-Jamal, Live from Death Row, Soledad Brother, George Jackson, like any type of literature or, books, nonfiction stuff I could find that was written by prisoners or about prison, I was reading, because really, I was like schooling myself. I was like, man, where am I? This is like, this is like a lot different from like a college campus, in a lot of ways, even though a lot of those prisons and the feds in the 90s did look like college campuses, those new ones they built. But yeah, I started working, man. I took the like kind of like the long side, like, it took me, I'm not going to say like right when I was like on that path, it took me a good, 7, 8, 9 years of being a knucklehead and, just doing all that stuff you got to do in prison, if you're doing a lot of time, and kind of establishing that rep. But, once I kind of felt, secure in my surroundings and I, had a lot of allies and associates, and people, respected me for who I was and how I treated people and how I acted, then, I really started just going gung ho. I was like, man, I'm going to be a writer. And they used to lock me up. I probably got locked up 20 times by SIS for my writing. Like when I
What is SIS?
Oh yeah.
SIS is like the prison investigators, so like they're like the FBI and the federal prisons and like,
where SIS gets bastards.
Yeah, they could do anything they want. So
basically,
yeah, I would write stuff and I would get something published, and then like, they would hear about it through the grapevine, or it would come down from like the central or regional office, like, what is this dude? He's on your compound writing stuff. And yeah, they would throw me in the hole, but I looked at it like, I was kind of like, I don't give a fuck. Throw me in the hole, man. This is for my future. You cannot, like anything I'm writing, or I took a lot of college classes too. I got my master's degree while I was in through correspondence, and anything and that was even a battle, but anything I did, I was just like, this is for my future. I don't care what you guys do to me now. You can lock me up. You can transfer me. You can write me fictitious incident reports or put me under investigation for some bullshit that I didn't even do. So it was like a battle, at a lot of places, especially like my last 10 years that I did.
Wow. How much time did you do all told?
I did 21 on 25.
21 to 25.
Yeah, I got drug program. The feds, you do 85%.
Right.
And then I got drug program. I did the RDEP program. I got 10 months off.
Yeah, the RDEP. I was such an abuser of drugs, and my lawyer said to, you don't tell them you're doing drugs. And then so I told my pre-trial, whatever person,
investigation,
I don't do drugs. And then I go in there, I go, what a schmuck. I would have gotten out in half the time, if I had.
I took the RDAP too. I took the 40 hour, 400, was 500 hours?
Yeah, 500 hours.
That's that joint too.
Yeah. Did you have any fun in prison?
I mean, yeah. I mean, when, I always tell people now, like, when you're there, because it's like such a macho culture. I mean, the only thing you can compare it to is like, maybe like locker room sports or like military. It's such like a macho infused culture. That I tell people all the time, man, that I had fun, but at the same time, it's like, you got to wear this mask and you got to carry it a certain way. But you joke with dudes. It's not until like now I've been out 6 years, right? And I think I'm like, man, even though I acted like it was nothing and I acted like everything was cool and I was having fun and I just worked out and played sports and, you know, rode and stayed at the law library and stuff like that. I think now, like 6 years out, I'm like, man, like the way they made us live, it was like so dehumanizing and degrading, you know, but it's like everybody, you know, it's like in there, you can't be like, oh, you know, you got to be a tough guy, you know, especially like when you're in the higher levels, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, you know, you got to fight, you got to put up or shut up.
When,
You know,
when I went to Rikers, somebody told he was a mobbed up guy who became my buddy there. And he said to me, you come from, you know, you're at a low security place federally. This ain't what Rikers is all about. And they go, when you're walking down the hall, your look better say, don't fuck with me, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know, and you walk down the hall and people are coming the other way. And, you know, you look the wrong way, you turn your head, you smirk, you smile, you sneeze, and all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, it's a problem.
It is a problem.
You offended somebody by trying not to offend them.
Exactly.
Yeah, inadvertently you offended everybody, Richard, by doing
Right.
that.
You're so fucking inoffensive, I want to kill you.
Yeah.
We talked earlier, Seth, you know, so happy to meet you, man. And besides, you know, having the best, you know, first name on the planet.
The namesake.
Great to get officially connected, man. We talked earlier a bit about, you know, kind of therapy and things like that. And I think everybody can agree, man. Like, I think the vision is that people going to prison are in a state of kind of lethargy, right? And that's kind of the assumption. It's just kind of like dead time. But really, the opposite is true. And really, all the shit that, you know, you're saying you've been out now 6 years and, you know, are going like, it's because, you know, staying in that hyper sense of awareness becomes the norm, right? And you're like always on point for, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then when you get out and you don't, you know, I saw somebody in the chat saying that, you know, they're still kind of, you know, worried about the who's creeping up behind them type of thing, you know, and if it's somebody's coming in the chow hall or whatever, you know, like, and you don't have to be that way anymore. And that's when you kind of go, oh shit, like there's really stuff there. There's trauma
So
there.
Seth, how long did it take you to A, stop dreaming about prison, and B, just kind of like say, all right, that was my past, now I'm in the present?
I don't know, what's today?
What about you, other Seth?
Seth 1 and Seth 2, right? We got Seth 1 is our guy.
I know.
Seth 2 is our other guy.
Just call me 7. I'll go back to 7.
Right?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, 6 years out, man, I'm still like decompressing, you know, I'm still like learning to have fun. I'm still learning to smile, you know, because like you were talking about, like, I mean, you just put on that mask, man. Like when you wake up, you put on that mask.
Yeah.
And I don't care, you know, everybody in prison, they're gonna be like, oh, it's not a mask. I'm keeping it real. I'm that tough guy. You know, whatever. You got to be that guy in there, and especially, you know, the more time you're doing, the higher level places. But when you get out, you know, the things that make you succeed or thrive or prosper in prison are not the things that are going to make you thrive. You know, it's maybe some things, you know, you could take like some relentless, but, you know, I mean, because in there, it's a lot of conniving, a lot of manipulating, you know, it's almost like dudes throw some dude down to like climb up on their back, you know, to make themselves look bigger, you know. I mean, the same stuff happens in the world, but in prison, it's just a lot more graphic because it's like a fishbowl and it's right there and it's in your face, you know. But yeah, I just, after all that time, like 6 years, man, like I'm still decompressing. I tell people all the time, I feel like really, like from doing that 21 years, I feel like really rough and coarse and raw, just like around regular, you know, like if I'm around like a bunch of criminals or ex-cons, I feel more natural, you know, than going in different, you know, not to say I can't, you know, I've been to like film festivals, you know, I've been to like Sundance and I've done all that stuff and I've hung out with all those people, you know, in those parties and stuff like that and some celebrities too. But like really, like I could just kick it with like Divine and I feel, you know, more comfortable, you know, just hanging out with him, you know, than being in all these.
Do you have a girlfriend or a wife?
Oh no, I got a wife. I met my wife when I was a fugitive in 1993. She's the reason I'm in St. Louis. She didn't even know my name when we met. You know, she didn't find out my real name till the U.S. Marshals told her. And, you know, then she stayed with me the whole time. We weren't married. We got married while I was in prison, but she was my girlfriend. And then, you know, she kind of hung around. And then about halfway through my bid, around 2005, we got married because I was like, well, if you're gonna wait the whole time, let's just get married. You know?
Yeah, man, no doubt. You gotta come on, man. You know, that's a given, man.
Yeah.
Is Craig still with us? Craig,
Yeah,
you
he's
still
there.
here?
He's still up there, yeah.
Craig, are you there? Adrian, can we hear from Craig? Is that possible? I was just wondering, you know, so we have
I'm
we have
here. I'm
Craig-
here.
Oh, there he is. Hey, brother. So meet Seth, you know.
Hey, Seth.
What's up, man? Peace.
Seth did 21 years and you've got a lot. I mean, it's just even to say the words are fucking
My clock's still running.
painful. But like, Seth, what's your message to Craig? You know, he's out now for COVID. He's going to get out soon. You've got to believe it with marijuana, with all that's going on. What does he need to know right now?
He has a life sentence, by the way.
Oh no, I'm very familiar with his story. I've read a lot about his case. You know,
Oh, wow.
particularly the injustice. You know, I'm a marijuana guy, so I'm up on like all the, you know, marijuana injustices and cannabis prisoners. That's the thing that like makes me the angriest, you know, today. Those people are still in there. But yeah, I would just say, man, you just gotta hope, you know, because you're out on compassionate release, right?
No.
Oh, my-
I'm just on a transfer to home confinement.
Okay. Oh, so
I've
you're
got-
not even a judge under the BOP.
Correct. And that's
Yeah,
just
man.
because I had a whole lot of the right people behind me fight. That there's not many of us that, you know, have gotten a release. I have the
You're-
longest term, you know.
Your case is real high profile too, man. But you just got, yeah, man. I mean, I can't say anything good about the BOP. You know, I don't have faith in the BOP. To me, they're the enemy, man. They make money off other people's misery. You know what I'm saying? I just couldn't, you know, for me, I could not be, you know, in a trade like that. You know, I'm not saying there's some good people that are guards and prison guards and stuff, but still, you know, the whole concept, they've been sold on this saying like, we're all these bad guys and so awful, you know, and over half the people in prison, you know, probably not to say everybody that's been in prison knows there's some psychopaths in prison, especially in the higher level, you know, some dudes are just like that. But, you know, majority of the people, man, when I ended up like in Forest City, the low, and I was like, they could let 50% of these people go and crime would not, you know, rise, you know, but especially, yeah, man, I pray for you, man. Cause I hope they, you know, they don't try to send you back, man. You've done enough. They need to leave you out. You know what I'm saying?
So Seth, what has Craig got to look forward to? Let's make believe they decide he can stay out. You know, he's been down for a long time.
Oh man, I mean, I heard you've been out since like June or July. So I'm sure you're living, man. It's just really, it's, I mean, and there everything's restricted, man. You don't have, you know, it's a scarcity of resources. You know, you like, if you want an ice cream, you can only get it one day a week. So that's like the biggest thing that I've just that little freedom. I mean, I'm sure even in your own home on home confinement, you know, you have a lot more freedom. It's way better than being in prison. But, you know, if you can look forward to, I mean, for me, the biggest things, I just like to go to the park and like, you know, walk my dogs and have a picnic with my wife, you know, just like the simple stuff that I missed all that time, you know, that a lot of people take that simple stuff for granted, you know, but when you do a lot of time, you know, that type of stuff is like real important, you know, to me. So, I mean, that's what I think you have to look forward to, you know, just living, man, being free, you know, having the choice. If you want to go to McDonald's at 11:30 at night, to go to McDonald's at 11:30 at night. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just that, like, that's all the stuff
Can't
that
do that in California though.
Get that Big Mac and fry, baby.
I can't do that yet because I'm
lockdown.
still on home confinement. But my biggest thing is actually having kind of fun, learning all the tech that everybody else takes for granted.
Oh yeah.
How hard was that for you, Craig, to get
Daughter
adjusted
couldn't
to?
tell anybody because I didn't believe it until I actually left. And so she handed me this flat thing as we were riding along in the car. And she says, we'll talk. And I said, well, we are talking. She goes, no, talk into that. I had no idea that flat thing was a telephone.
Flat thing. you came from Fred Flintstone to the Jeffersons. The Jetsons, I mean.
I like the fact that I could take a shower without wearing flip-flops.
Yeah.
That was a big one for me.
Sit in the bathroom and not having to hear, flush that water, put some water on it. Come on, man. Cut it out.
Or Go
As
to
a
the
courtesy
shower
for
without
us,
your
Seth.
boots on. Go to the
Yeah.
shower without your boots on.
Right?
No.
Yeah, real. He got his
Oh,
boots
boots right
still.
here.
You ready? You ready for the shower?
Who's
Those
ready?
are actually signed by the guards that was holding them. Signed them. Release.
Oh man.
I'm just having fun getting up in the morning and making a pot of coffee. You know,
Absolutely.
that's a dream come true.
It's not Keefe, right? It's not a Keefe brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
They could do
stuff
a
that you
Cadillac.
get in prison for
But I
like
still have my radio and my earbuds from
Yeah,
the
exactly.
training.
Yeah.
it like costs 12 times as much as it should be, and it's like 1/12 the quality. All these like off brands,
1/12 the quality for real.
just this total shit merchandise and batteries that from like for 1937, you know, and that they charge you $11 each. It's a complete ripoff. Everything about it. I'm really, you know, I have to tell you, I wasn't expecting Craig to be with us tonight, and I'm so appreciative that you would come by. And first of all, I would be remiss, you know, we still have a bunch of people here, but I told you, you came on Commissary Club and I said, we want to help you. What can we do? What can we all do to help you? This is a guy who got a fucking life sentence for dealing marijuana, basically. A drug that has been decriminalized in California. So wherever you go, there are beautiful stores like it's like Bloomingdale's selling pot, but you got a life sentence. What can we do to help you and get the word out about your situation, Craig?
Well, get this. I had to go to the doctor here recently, and I walked down the sidewalk right in front of a marijuana store here in Chicago. But what I need is really for everybody else to get help and to get right and all that. We need to give prisoners a different look to people out on the street, because prisoners aren't all rapists and, you know, robbers and, you know, scum of the earth kind of people.
Yep.
And that's what we need to show. And we've got to help each other so we can do that.
I know, but Craig,
I have a bid in with the president right now. I've got some real strong support for clemency. So hopefully, you know, Trump will be on that clemency.
All right.
bandwagon.
So you could go to change.org, for example, and sign a petition for you, and you could make a donation for your defense, and you can pray that Craig gets the fuck out of this ridiculous nightmare already. And, you know, maybe there are other ways too, but, you know, we want to, please, whatever we can do. And when I say we, I just mean this community of people who've done time, and, you know, what you're going through is just, I mean, it's just completely ridiculous. Seth, what's up with you, man? What do you got coming up? You got some big projects you're working on?
Yeah, Vice. Vice did an episode on my case. It was on. I was a teenage felon. It actually just premiered like a couple nights ago. So they've been showing like different clips, and it's like you know, it's like on cable TV and like some streaming networks, the Vice channel right now. But then eventually it'll be like on the Vice TV app and YouTube. You know, probably like in, you know, the next month or so, because that's how they like recycle their stuff down. But then I also have this. I've been working on this documentary for, man, almost like 4 years. It's about it's called this area in St. Louis. It's called North City. And it's really, it's always like why St. Louis is like in the murder capital of the world. It's a lot of poverty, you know, homelessness, you know, drugs, gangs, you know, violence. And there's this preacher here. His name is the Reverend Kenneth McCoy. And he's like this big dude with dreadlocks, and he has like a real church, but he also goes out on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, like in these hot spots, you know, across what they call the Delmar Divide in St. Louis. And, you know, he walks the streets, man, from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning. And we followed him with cameras for 2 years, and, you know, just to show what he's doing. And I've been working on this for a while, but it's really, it's telling this one Reverend story and what he's doing here in St. Louis. But, you know, it's like a microcosm of everything that's going on like in the world, you know, with all the protests, you know, and all the police brutality, you know, and the defund the police movement and stuff like that. So it's just a real interesting look at one man and what he's doing, which basically, like he says what he's doing. He's like a violence interrupter. He says, you know, I'm doing what I'm doing because I love my people more than I'm scared of them. So, you know, and it was crazy. It was like, we heard gunshots, you know, like all types of stuff. But yeah, that's almost ready. And I'm going to get that out next year, you know, and either on a, you know, probably, I don't know, might go directly to a streaming network, but maybe some film festivals first.
You know, it's amazing to me. I asked Craig, who is going through his own version of hell, and I said, what can we do to help you? And what you had to say was help other people who are going through this. It wasn't about you. And I asked you, Seth, to talk about you and to give yourself a plug. And you talked about someone else that you wanted to bring attention to. To me, that is so telling that you guys and so many people in this community really do care about one another. And that flies in the face of every kind of misconception about this population. And like you said, Seth, yeah, there are axe murders, there are crazy motherfuckers that none of us would love to see move in next door to us or date our daughters or anything else. But that represents a tiny portion of the people there. For the most part, you're talking about people who are just like anybody else. I was in prison with people who ran people over because they were drunk when they were driving. I don't know anybody who hasn't gotten behind the wheel with an extra glass of wine or an extra beer there, but for the grace of God. And I don't know a single businessman who doesn't cheat once in a while on his taxes and take a personal dinner and call it a business expense. But I was in prison with people who got popped for that. My point is, morality is not black and white. It's far more subtle. And the people who are in prison are our brothers and sisters and family members, and, you know, and particularly those related with drugs. It used to be it's them and us. They are the monsters. Lock them up, throw away the key. We're good people. But all of a sudden, our kids and our brothers and our sisters got arrested for drugs. Guys like Craig and Seth here, and them became us. You know, and it's a far more nuanced thing. Morality isn't nearly as black and white as people would like it to be. I think this might be a great time for us to thank our guests. Seth, Dee, do you have anything you want to add before we go?
Oh yeah, how much time do you have left? About 30 minutes?
I'm wrapping it up.
Oh, you're wrapping up now? Okay. No, I just wanted to touch on something you spoke about and Glenn spoke about earlier about the mental health thing and how, you know, us as people being formerly incarcerated don't really seek out that type of help, and we definitely should. And there's a saying I came across when I was doing a pitch in California at YouTube, and in front of Jeff Hoffman and some other people, and a guy stood up and spoke about PTSD, post-prison stress disorder. And when he said that, I'm like, yo, that's crazy, because I've never heard that put like that. And I actually suffered from that myself personally, where I got locked into this negative cycle of recidivism, to where I was just constantly committing crimes, getting out, committing crimes, and going back and forth for majority of my life. And then finally, you know, I broke that cycle. But definitely mental health is at the top of the key, man, for us as formerly incarcerated to really address and really change. Like you've seen how Glenn approached it and learned that he needed that help, and he got it, and is getting it.
That's great. Seth S, do you want to share something?
Yeah, you know, I think this is dope. I really like the setup. Thanks to everybody for coming on. You know, Glenn and Seth, and you know, having the best name on the planet again. I think Glenn says something that is really powerful, and I've heard him say it before, but just hearing it again tonight, it's like those that are closest to the problem are also closest to the solution, right? Like, I mean, you know, having we all have like stuff that we're working towards making a difference in this space, right? And it's super powerful when everybody's together and doing this all in unison and all, you know, and that's the reason why we created Commissary Club in the first place. I'm reading some of the chats that are happening here, and there's people that are like, I want to do this and I want to do that. Like that's what that is there for, you know what I mean? So like putting that together and letting that be the glue that, you know, that we all band together with and kind of organize this, you know, this power, you know, that we have that, you know, we're showing here at the yard and all the stuff that's happening. Like, that's how change, you know, I mean, happens. So you know, let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah, let's. So everybody who joined us here, we really appreciate your time. You know, we're just starting this out. You know, we're just figuring things out. But to me, a night that we can get Seth Ferrante and Craig on at the same time talking to each other is for me, is a pretty special night.
Yeah.
You know, these are two guys who, you know, I have mad respect for, and the way they lead their lives. You know, we can't let society define us by the worst mistake we ever made, you know, and particularly when those mistakes are now not even considered mistakes, which is the bitterest, most grotesque irony of this whole thing. You know, we are figuring this out, but we just know that if we can come together and look after each other and join together and speak with one voice, there are enough of us to elect the next president. There's enough of us to change the laws. There are enough of us to demand that we've done our time. It's enough already. It's time for us to move on with our lives. Individually, we're nothing, but together, nobody could fuck with us. So thank you for coming together. And for those of you who are here, please get in touch. Contact us at info@commissary.club. If you haven't created an account there, I want you to create an account there. I want you to share what your thoughts are. I want to see the conversations that are going on in this chat here to be shared with a lot more people. We have thousands and thousands of people already on our site, and we just started, you know, but I just see there's so much opportunity for us together. And again, thank you so much for all of you for being here, and for my partners, Seth and Dee. You guys are amazing. We're going to do this again next week. We'll let you know about it. And if you'd like to be on the show, give us a holler too, you know? So thanks a lot. Everybody stay safe, and we will see you soon.
Thanks all. Y'all, Rico, we're out.
Peace.
Recall.
Get out of here.